Hi there, and welcome to our deep dive on the manufacturing edition with Acumatica. Today we'll go into a nice deep dive of the manufacturing solution that Acumatica has to offer, and we're going to start with a sales quote to a sales order. We'll create projects, we'll create production orders, we'll release it, we'll serialize inventory. It's going to be a nice, fully deep dive into the manufacturing edition of Acumatica. But the first thing that we will need to do is actually log into the system, and because Acumatica is a true cloud and web-based solution, we access the system through a mobile browser if you haven't seen our other videos. Here I have the URL, here I have my username and password, the company that I'll be working in today with, obviously manufacturing, and I'll go ahead and sign into the system. The first place that I'm going to want to start with today is obviously if you've seen any of our other videos, we have a lot of dashboards that are available to us. Primarily, Acumatica has also manufacturing dashboards that are also relevant to the day-to-day operations for any company at large, especially if you're manufacturing. So here we can just see some sample information, as far as late production orders, total labor costs, the status of these production orders, and you can really see a lot of the high-level view of what manufacturing looks like at your company at any given time. As long as the information is in the system, you are able to report on it easily and seamlessly, and you can specify any sort of dashboard that you're sort of looking to achieve. Here we also have another dashboard for manufacturing just as a sample, and it's the production manager dashboard. So here we could just see some of the more frontline information, and dashboards aren't typically used just, by the C-suite team. They are very, very helpful for the day-to-day operations, whether you're in shipping, warehousing, actual production like you see here, accounts receivable, and yes, of course, the C-suite team as well. So to start, today we're going to be working with an item that I've named panel. I've created in the inventory module, so I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like. And you'll notice that I'm using the search. Everyone's sort of got their preference, but I typically use the universal search on a day-to-day basis. So here we can see the item that I've created named panel, and this is what we'll be using today in our entire example. And here you can see that it is a finished good. And I've also asked for this item to be serialized upon receipt into inventory. So I'll show you what that looks like eventually, and we'll cover off more of the components when we get to the bill of material to show you what that actually looks like. But to start, we'll want to create a new sales quote. So we're quoting in this panel item because a customer is interested in purchasing, let's say, 5 of these panels for the sake of argument today. Now, typically, if your production is very robust, it's very long, and you track it in projects, that is the example we'll be using today. We'll be actually using a project manufacturing example to make it a little bit more robust. Obviously, we know we can create a production order from a sales order. That's really easy, but let's take it sort of that next step. So that's why we'll be creating it through a project. But what I'll do here is I'll simply enter the customer. So I can do so by starting to type the name. And I'll just specify this customer for today. We'll be using AltaAce as our primary customer. I'll need to add the inventory ID that we're manufacturing, and in this case, it's the panel. Again, you'll notice that when I start searching, it auto filters through the entire system. This is a demo system, so it's telling me I don't have a last cost as well, so perks of working with demo data. So I'm going to enter that quantity of 5 that we mentioned earlier to quote this particular customer. So here we can see that we're going to quote them 5 of these items. The unit price per item is $5,000. The order total is going to be $25,000 for this particular quote. We'll save this quote. And at this point, we can do a few things. We can actually email the sales quote out to the customer, or we can put it on hold. We could also print it if we'd like to. Really, it's up to you. So if we click on printing the quote, for instance, just to show you a couple of other things we can do. We'll open up the quote. This is just a sample quote. At this point, we can also send it from here, or we can export it into Excel or PDF. So we can drop this in as well. So just something to take note of in the future. So I'll go back into our quote that we just created. Here we can see the order type is QT, specifying that it's a quote. Now let's say a couple of days has gone by, the customer has accepted the quotation, and now they want to create an order. What we'll do is we'll click on Actions, and we'll copy this order now to an SO type, which is a sales order type. So we'll go ahead and create the sales order from the quotation directly, and we'll see that the order type has now changed to SO, and we can save this to store in an open status. Now, additionally, we can also attach things to this item, right? So we can attach things to sales orders, and we can do this. So if we just, let's say, drag and drop something off my desktop, and I drag it directly onto the quote, we can see that the files now have an attachment against it, and I can drill down and attach it to the sales order. This is really helpful if you, let's say, have any engineering drawings, AutoCAD drawings, or anything like that that you want to reference as far as, attachments goes to specific documents. And this is system-wide pretty much. So across most of the forms, if not all of them, you have these notes activities files as well. In addition, I can write a note, new quote for customers. So this is a way to sort of store information at the header level of a document. Alternatively, you can also attach things at the line level. So if I wanted to attach something particularly for an item level or a line level, we can do that. Or we can even add notes at a line level note. So just a couple of examples on, things about as far as, just some high level administration, so to speak. So here you can see that the system is also yelling at me because I don't have inventory on hand. I don't have that quantity. I have not manufactured this item. So if we drill down into the inventory ID just for a point of reference, if we go to our warehouse details, we'll see that there is a 0 quantity on hand. And we don't really want to go into negative inventory. That's not typically a recommendation that we give to anybody, but this will obviously go away as soon as we manufacture this item. So in a perfect scenario, we could technically just create a production order directly from the sales order here, but that's a little bit rudimentary. So let's take it a next step. We're going to go ahead and create a project and create a production order directly to the project. So the sales order has been created. So at this point, we're going to create a project for this particular sales order, allocate it to the customer, and then create a production order against it. So to do that, I can do that directly from the sales order. So I'll just click on this pencil, I'll clear this, and open up a new project. Now, the project accounting module is a very, very large module. I don't want to get too far into it today, but it is a very large module to sort of maintain. So the first thing we'll do is we'll enter the customer, Alt-A-Ace, which is the customer we're working with today. And Acumatica has this nice thing called templates, especially when it comes to projects. Like I mentioned, these modules are very large. So you want to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible. So here I can see that there is a template project for a manufacturing project, which is what we're doing today. And you'll see that the track production data checkbox is set, and that is exactly what we want to do, as well as it defaults all the tasks. So if you're not a manufacturer, but you are working with projects, you can set yourself these templates up as well. So here we can see some design, engineering, manufacturing, installation. Depending on your operations, you might maybe add some quality control, things like that that are relevant to your business. So here we can see that the project is created. We see that it's in a hold stage and that our tasks are not activated. So to kick this project off, we'll have to activate our tasks. We see that they're active. We'll take it off hold, which now creates this project and makes it active in the system. Again, you'll notice those notes, files, attachments, things at the top here, at which point we can really just drag and drop things directly on our project, and it attaches things at a high level there. So now we've created the project against this particular order for this manufacturing opportunity. The next thing that we're going to want to do is create a production order for this project, which is allocated to the sales order for this particular customer. So to do that, you'll notice there's this create prod order, and that's exactly what we're going to use. So what I'll go ahead and do is go to the manufacturing task and hit create production order. I'll enter the inventory ID. The warehouse will automatically default based on where the location is, and we're going to want to create a quantity of 5. I'll click create. And now we've created a production order for this particular project for this particular customer. So here we can see the production order 29 in the warehouse of wholesale, and we have to produce 5 of these quantities. So alternatively, I could drill down into the production order directly from here, or we can navigate it through the system. So we've essentially just created a production order for this project, for this customer relevant to this order. It's a nice, that whole bit, that audit trail that you see from start to finish. The next thing that we're going to want to do is maybe review the bill of materials, right? Let's say you were interested in what does this bill of material look like? Let's see what revisions look like when we're tracking this in the system. So let's go ahead and do that. So I can access it directly from the production order. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'll open up the production order, and if I wanted to see the inventory ID itself, which we have, we can go ahead and drill into the inventory ID. And under the manufacturing tab, we can see the default bill of material that's being allocated to this particular item. So when I drill down into this bill of material, I can see that it only has one work center just to keep it a little bit simple, but you can have multiple work centers allocated to a bill of material, right? Like assembly, cutting, it can move through different stages of the warehouse. And some people typically will even use scanning solutions to track the production and track work in progress that way as well. So here you can see just the default bill of material. You'll notice I have a revision. You can track revision A, and if you click on the magnifying glass, you'll see that there are 2 revisions for this particular item. No, I'm not going to get into it today, but if you do happen to track engineer change requests, that is something you're able to do as well. So here we can see I've kept it very simple. I have one work center, it's just an assembly. And here we can see all of the component items associated with this bill of material. So if I drill down into one of the components, we'll see that it's not a finished good, but it's more of a component part. And here you can see I've created it and made it a component part, and I've also made sure it's not serialized just to keep things simple. But if you do track and serialize your components as well, you are able to do that. Okay. So here we've now sort of reviewed this bill of material. I'm just going to go and exit out of these windows. You'll notice that the Acumatica system makes information very easy to access, and you're able to get pretty far into a hole without going too far. So at this point, I'll go into our production orders. Ooh, I think I have to save my sales order. Yeah. Oh, yeah, we need to allocate it to the project. So we'll go ahead and allocate it to the project that we just created. That's 24. And I'll click save. So now that we've allocated the project to the sales order, we have the 5 panels that we need to manufacture. The first thing that we're going to want to do is actually go ahead and look at the production order. So let's go ahead and do that. Under the production order modules, under production order maintenance, we'll see the latest and greatest production order that's created here. And we see that we have this panel that needs 5 of them to be produced in order to manufacture this item. So there's a couple of things we can see at the highest level. We have the high level information, what warehouse it's in, where the location's going to be, but there's also a couple of other things we want to take into consideration. Under production order details, there's a couple of things we can do. The unit cost obviously default, but we want to mark this for PO. Again, we're taking it to that next step because obviously we know if the inventory is on hand, the production order will just ask us to pull it and we can pull it. But what if you don't have the components on hand and you actually have to order them in order to manufacture the item? What we'll do is we'll select mark for PO. And what this will do is create the demand in the system, letting the system know to create these mass purchase orders. And I'll show that here in a minute. So once we've selected mark for PO, we see the unit cost of this project. I'll go ahead and save this. And this is obviously something that can be automatic and defaulted if it's relevant. We'll go back into the production order maintenance tab, and it's still in a plan phase, right? So I'm still able to order these items. You can't release the production order and then order inventory. First, we actually need to purchase them. So what we'll do at this point is we'll create the purchase orders, mass create purchase orders for this production order so that we can streamline and purchase and procure all the inventory we need. So under inquiries, I'll click on create purchase orders. And you'll notice the inventory items that I need to purchase are listed here. So these are the components for this item. You'll notice the default vendor is also specified. So if you have a preferred vendor that you typically buy a part or anything from, it's going to, carry a wide system wide. You can change it if you'd like to. You can also change the quantities if you want. But what you'll notice is the quantities are also being multiplied by 5 because you're creating 5 of these particular items, these panels. So we'll see all of these purchase orders, the production order that's being referenced, and we're going to want to create all of them right away because we don't want to create them individually. So I can alternatively select each and individual one and then hit process, and it's going to process the ones I've only selected, or I can click process all. One of the things I want to mention here is the schedules feature. And what this does is a scheduling tool that actually automates this. So once you sort of get the hang of the Acumatica solution, you're able to automate certain tasks like this. So let's say every 10 minutes you want this process to run and just auto create all the purchasing and let purchasing know. You can schedule these tasks out to do this automatically if you didn't want to review it. So here you can say you can have it run daily, on whatever date, every one day you can start it, and you can run it every 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. Or you could run it weekly, monthly, etc. But just an example of the level of automation that you can sort of leverage. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create these purchase orders for this production order, create it from the project for the sales order. So we'll go ahead and just click process all to make things a little bit simple. And the system is now going to create all of these purchase orders and add them to the system. But it won't post them. So here we can see that there's 6 purchase orders that were posted. I don't want to exit out of this window, but you'll notice that some of the vendors are the same. So we have a vendor, 2 items there, a services, 2 items there, 1 for this vendor and 1 for this vendor. So technically this should have created 4 purchase orders, even though that there's 6 items. So it's going to bundle everything amongst the same vendor. So now it's going to release, refresh our create purchase order screen, and it's empty. So now what's going to happen is the purchasing department is going to get notified saying, hey, there's stuff that you need to buy. So let's go to purchasing. Under the purchasing module, we'll go to purchase orders. And you'll notice there are the 4 purchase orders that have been created for this particular production order. You'll notice they are not on hold, they're not automatically posted, and the Acumatica demo system also has an approval process in stage as well. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like. So when we drill down into a purchase order, we see it's on hold. We see it's bundled 2 of the items that we need for this particular panel. We can review all of this information. Once we've accepted that this purchase order can be sent out, we'll take it off hold, and you'll notice it goes into a pending approval status. So if I'm not my purchasing manager, or if there's somebody else who needs to approve this, they're at this point going to be notified saying, hey, you need to approve this PO because Samantha's just tried to add it to the system, which is fine. So because I'm the super user, and for the sake of argument, for the sake of time, and I have access to everything in the module, I'm just going to go ahead and approve this purchase order. So now this has been sent to the vendor. We're asking and requesting this inventory. Again, at this point, we could print this purchase order if we'd like to as well. You'll notice those notes, activities, files, and business events across the board at the top, sitting there, again, able to attach documents across the system. So we'll notice that this purchase order has now changed from on hold to open, and I'm just going to go ahead and create all of these purchase orders and release them and approve them. Okay. Perfect. Once the purchase orders have actually been approved, they've been sent off to the vendor, and we're going to be waiting for this inventory to come into our warehouse. So let's say a week's gone by, and the next thing that we're going to need to do is enter a PO receipt from these purchase orders. So to do that, I'll drill down onto the purchase order that we're receiving goods for. I can verify all the information, and under Actions, I'll click on Enter PO Receipt. So now we're going to receive all of this inventory so that we can allocate it to the production order that we created. Now, if we did receive more quantity, we could make the adjusted entry, and we can say that we've received more than we've actually ordered. So we adjust the receipt quantity here. I'm just going to leave it as is. Or if you've received less quantity, let's say you've received 55, then the system would keep this purchase order open as well until we receive the remaining quantity from the vendor. So the line would remain open. You can also create the bill for the receipt at the receipt level if you're comfortable with that. Sometimes people like to do it if they're very confident with a vendor or very confident in the transaction. Not typically recommended, but for the sake of time, that is what I'm going to do. I'll enter a vendor reference number. I'll click on save, and I will release this purchase receipt. And now I'll go ahead and receive all the rest of the purchase orders as well. So here we can see that this PO we've just closed because we've received the inventory. So I'll go ahead and receive all the other goods as well. And we're going to receive the last purchase order now. Enter my last vendor reference number, and I'll release this. Now, because we're also creating the bill, one of the things that I want to show you is how this is going to, track everything. So here we can also see the purchase order number for this particular receipt of goods, and we can see the bill that's been created as well. So we can drill down into all of this information directly from the PO, from the purchase receipt. Very easy to access that information. Again, one of the reasons why Acumatica is ranked #1 in usability. But under the financials detail tab, you can even go as granular as looking and seeing what the journal entry looks like for that particular AP bill, where you'll see your debits and your credits allocated appropriately. Okay, so now that we've received all of our items for this particular production order, we're going to have to allocate it to the production order. So we've received these goods specifically that were directed for this production order, and we want to allocate those materials to the production order as well. So under the production order module, there's something called unreleased material allocations. And what this will do is you'll see here those items, and again, demo information, so there's a lot of noise here. But here you can see these items that we've just ordered that are allocated to production order 29. So I'll just simply check all of these off, and I'm going to release these to that production order. That way we can start manufacturing that item. I can verify all the information, take it off hold, and I'll click on release. And what I've just done is release these inventory directly to the production order. So now what we're going to go do is we'll go back into the production order, and let's say it's been a few days or the production order is now completed, the panels have been completed. We want to receive the production order and the 5 quantities of panels back into inventory. So I'll go into production orders, I'll go into our production order maintenance tab, I'll drill down into the production order that we've been working on. We can see that it's in process, and let's say now it's been a few days, or however long your manufacturing process takes, and we're going to receive this inventory now into the inventory into our warehouse. So what we'll do is we'll click on actions and we'll click on create move. And remember, those 5 items that were generated need to also be serialized. So we're going to have to do that before we enter them into the inventory. So here I can see that there's a total of 5 that we've created, and we need to allocate our serial numbers. So the first thing that I have to do is click on allocations. And I'm just going to click on generate because I just want to auto generate these, and I've created serial numbers for this item in the past. That's why it's starting at number 5. Alternatively, you could manually create these serial numbers. Some people track serial numbers, based on project codes with special, identifiers. You can manually create them. You can auto generate them. They can have certain sequences or pull certain information. It really is how you want to serialize your inventory. So here we have the 5 items, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And we'll click on OK to allocate them, the serial numbers, to these particular items. I'll take this off hold, and I will now release this move. So now that we've released this move, that inventory is now sitting in the system. Remember when we first started this whole process, there was no inventory on hand. So let's go take a look at the panel ID directly from the move. We'll click on panel ID. I'll click on warehouse details. Boom, there we see the 5 items that I've just manufactured, and they're sitting there and they've been received into inventory. So once they've been received, we're going to have to ship them to a customer. So the next step that we'll have to do is create the shipment for that initial sales order that we created for Allocates, the customer who ordered 5 of these panels. So what we'll go ahead and do is go back into the sales order we've created. Here we can see those little attachments that we put are highlighted in yellow. So here we can see that this quantity is no longer yelling at us or throwing a warning because there's no negative inventory, because we have 5 of them on hand. So I'll go ahead and now create the shipment for this particular sales order. Great. So now we can see that the shipment has been created. We can see that the lot and serial numbers are allocated. If we want to verify the allocations, we can see that 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 have automatically pulled. And we can verify the shipment, but once we're ready to ship this, we can send this out the door. So I'm going to confirm the shipment now. And now this document and these items have been shipped out the door and they need to be invoiced. So if you have looked at our previous webinars or other videos that we've recorded, one of the things that I want to show you is the power of dashboards. So here we're currently sitting in the shipping document. Warehouse has now shipped this inventory out the door, but the one thing we want to make sure we don't do is forget to invoice this particular shipment. So under the actual dashboards, I'm going to just quickly go to an AR clerk dashboard just to sort of show you. And this is the example we use typically across the board. Under the orders to invoice, we see that accounts receivable has one invoice that they need to cut. And it's exactly for this Alta Ace customer, for this shipment number. And if I drill down into it, it is the 5 panels that we've just created. And we want to make sure that we don't forget to invoice. So this solves that really common issue we see often where, shipping has to walk down a document to accounts receivable on a piece of paper, or they send an email, things get lost. And a lot of our customers who prior to using Acumatica would forget to invoice their customers because documents or things would get lost. So at this point, I can see the invoice as an accounts receivable clerk. I can prepare the invoice and I'll do that, and then we'll release the invoice as well. So we can verify the invoice, verify all the information, add a description if you want. Again, add those notes, activities, attachments, anything we want to do. At this point, I'll click on release, and I've now released the invoice for this sales order, for this production order that we've allocated to a project, and we've just done the whole process from start to finish. I hope you've enjoyed this video and this sort of manufacturing overview and the capabilities of Acumatica at a very quick glance. Thanks for your time.